Good evening and welcome to the Community Development and Urban Planning meeting. We thank all of you who have joined us here today, and I am going to call for the roll for the council members that are either here in chambers or virtually. We'll start with Councilman White,
Present.
Councilman Spadola,
Present.
President Congo,
Here.
Councilmember Darby, Councilmember Fields, Brigadier Fields,
Present.
Councilman Nathan Field, Councilmember Field, Councilmember McCoy.
Here.
Thank you. I am Maria Cabrera, Councilwoman at Large, and I am the Chair of the Community Development and Urban Planning Committee meeting. And it is my pleasure to welcome you here this evening. This will be the last meeting of the year, as we will not have a meeting in December, and we will resume on the second Thursday of January. So today we do have a short agenda. We'll start with the ordinances, and then we have a presentation that we have members here from the community, as well as our city departments. So let's start with ordinance 23-038, an ordinance to approve the Riverside Phase 3 major subdivision plan and to authorize the city to accept the dedication of new segments of East 25th Street, East 26th Street, Edgemore Avenue, and Rosemont Avenues as a public right-of-way and add them to the official city map. Sponsor of this legislation is Councilmember Oliver. Is she present to speak to this? If not, that's okay. We have Mr. John Kirk who can speak to this from the city. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of City Council, colleagues and members of the public. My name is John Kurth and I'm a senior planner with the Department of Land Use and Planning. I'm here this afternoon to present ordinance 23-038. First slide, please. Or next slide, I'm sorry. Thank you. This map illustrates the area of interest with the parcels outlined in red. In June 2023, the Department of Land Use and Planning received a major subdivision application from Vandemark and Lynch Incorporated on behalf of the Wilmington Housing Authority and Kingswood Community Center Incorporated, entitled Riverside Phase 3, which proposes to subdivide 5 parcels of land into 7 new parcels and to dedicate 1 new segment of East 25th Street, 3 new segments of East 26th Street, 1 new segment of Rosemont Avenue, and 1 new segment of Edgemore Avenue to the City of Wilmington as public rights-of-way. At the bottom right, the 2 odd-shaped parcels constitute 1 non-contiguous parcel that supports the creation of an extended Edgemore Avenue, which in turn is crucial to the development of the new Kingswood Community Center. The plan will allow for the circulation of vehicular and pedestrian traffic and for the redevelopment of the Wilmington Housing Authority's 12.9-acre Riverside Public Housing Development site. The balance of the 17.631-acre site consists of the 4.684-acre Kingswood Community Center's baseball fields, which are to be redeveloped as the new Kingswood Community Center and its accessory parking lot. All parcels are situated within the R5A, or low-density apartment houses, zoning district. Next slide, please. This subdivision and street dedication actions will support the next phase of the $700 million 8-phase Riverside Housing Redevelopment Project in Northeast Wilmington. Due to the large area of territory to be subdivided and to receive newly dedicated street segments, curbs, and sidewalks built to city standards, for legibility, there are 2 major subdivision sheets. This slide illustrates the western territory of the subdivision bounded by North Claymont Street, East 24th Street, Rosemont Avenue, and East 27th Street. The yellow shaded segments of East 25th Street and East 26th Street are proposed to create a traditional neighborhood street grid and eliminate the existing 1950s era elongated block design that currently exists. The new segment of East 25th Street shown here is 350 feet long by 50 feet wide. The 2 new segments of East 26th Street shown here are 660 feet long by 70 feet wide. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates the eastern territory bounded by Rosemont Avenue, the northern parcel of Kingswood Community Center property, the Amtrak Railway Viaduct, and East 27th Street. The yellow shaded segments of East 26th Street, Rosemont Avenue, and Edgemore Avenue shown here are proposed to create a more traditional neighborhood street grid, and more importantly, will allow vehicular access to the new Kingswood Community Center's parking lot. The one new segment of East 26th Street shown here is 436 feet long by 80 feet wide. Overall, the three new segments of East 26th Street proposed to be built between North Claymont and the Amtrak Railway Viaduct right-of-way are 1,086 feet in length. The proposed curving segment of Edgemore Avenue is approximately 168 feet long by 50 feet wide. The proposed segment of Rosemont Avenue at top left is 58 feet long by 50 feet wide. Next slide, please. This slide focuses on two important street segments and the roundabout traffic feature proposed at the intersection of East 26th Street and Rosemont Avenue at top right. At the lower right is the terminus of the proposed East 26th Street and the proposed curving segment of Edgemore Avenue that will connect Edgemore Avenue to the northern egress of the proposed parking lot to serve the new Kingswood Community Center. At upper left is the small segment of Rosemont Avenue that will connect that street to the southern ingress and egress of the proposed parking lot to serve the new Kingswood Community Center. And the footprint of the new Kingswood Community Center and that of its supporting parking lot are illustrated here. The variances required to construct the building as illustrated were granted by the Zoning Board of Adjustment to the Kingswood Community Center, Inc., or Incorporated, I should say, on July 25th, 2023, in case 7.7.23. In conclusion, these plan sheets were circulated to city departments in August of 2023. The Department of Public Works is in support of the plan and the new city street segments. The Fire Marshal's Office had no comment, and the City Planning Commission reviewed the plans and adopted Resolution 423, which recommends the approval of the applicant's request.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. That was very thorough. So from looking at the map here, I guess my first question is, there's going to be a circle? Because I see circles are always so much safer than
Yeah,
streetlights.
traffic, yeah, roundabout.
Okay, the roundabout there. Okay, there was one out. I mean, it looks very clear to me, and progress is definitely being made over there, and very excited about that new developed area of the city. Are there any questions that the members of the committee have in reference to the presentation by Mr. Kirk?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, proceed. Councilman White?
Mr. Kirk, the roundabout, is that below Governor Prince at 26?
Well, east of, yes.
East
I
of,
mean, if that's what you mean by.
yes.
Yes.
My directions aren't as good as yours, I apologize. So that'll be the, roundabout will be the right off of Governor Prince on the Vandiver,
Let me
or
think.
is it further up?
Well, it's at 26th Street, so it would be further north.
Further north?
Yeah, it would be 26th and, I don't have the map in
Yeah,
front of me.
right past the Dollar Tree, Dollar General area?
Mhm.
Okay. Who's responsible for the improvements?
The developer.
But the city will maintain them?
I believe so, yes.
So are we?
In terms of maintaining, in terms of like plowing and,
Correct.
yes.
Just questions. Thank you. Is that for all streets? Is that all streets in this phase 3?
Mhm.
Thank you.
So I guess they're all considered public right-of-ways,
Right.
these streets.
But they're built at the developer's cost,
Okay,
To the city specs.
to the city standards, including sidewalks and
thank you.
curbing.
Thank you, John.
One last question. Was any community groups involved in the conversation?
Oh, the Reach Riverside group, which I believe there's somebody on this call. You know, they have been very active. This is the third phase. There's 8 total phases. So phase 1 and 2 have already been built from 30th Street heading south. So now we're getting to 27th through closer to 25th, and it'll keep filling out in terms of all of the housing. This 1950s era kind of barrack-style housing is certainly out of date. It's been vacant and abandoned for several years, mostly demolished. And the new housing that's going up is 21st century, state-of-the-art.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman White. Are there any other council members online from the committee that have any questions? And I would like to acknowledge that Councilmember Darby is with us. Not seeing any questions from my colleagues. Are there any council members that are not on the committee that might have any questions? Okay, no hands up. At this time, anyone from the public that would like to speak or ask any questions may come up and do so. And we'll start with the people present here, and then if there's anybody online. Anyone that has a question that would like to come up? Is there anyone online that might have a question about this development? You did such a thorough job, John. Nobody has any questions,
Thank you.
except Councilman White.
Oh, thank you.
So at this time, just a reminder too that only the committee members can make a motion and vote. Can I get a motion to move this ordinance out of committee, ordinance 23-038?
So motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and second. The ordinance will be voted out of committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. The next ordinance we have is ordinance 23-042, an ordinance to approve the Liberty Street Properties Major Subdivision Plan and authorize the city to remove a portion of Liberty Street, a portion of Nancy Street, and 2 unnamed alleys from the official city map, and accept the dedication of the new segments of Liberty Street, Lower Elm Street, and Lower Linden Street as public rights-of-way, and then move them to the official city map. The sponsor is Councilmember Harley. Is Councilmember Harley here to speak to this?
Hi, Madam Chair. I am on
Welcome,
the
Councilmember
line,
Harley.
but if someone is on the line from the administration, I would like to defer to them first, and then I will share my remarks.
Is there anyone here from the city, from Public Works, that would speak to this ordinance -23-042? John?
I'll be
Okay, Mr. Kirk will speak to this as well. Thank you.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, you may proceed.
Good evening. My name is John Kurth, and I'm a senior planner with the Department of Land Use and Planning. I'm here this afternoon to present ordinance 23-042. Next slide, please. This aerial image illustrates the area of interest. In September 2023, the Department of Land Use and Planning received a major subdivision application from Foresight Associates on behalf of owners Raybold Venture Group 14, entitled Liberty Street Properties. The plans propose to subdivide 14 parcels into 6 new parcels, to remove 2 unnamed alleys, to remove 1 block of Nancy Street, and to remove 1 block of Liberty Street, and to dedicate segments of Liberty, Lower Elm, and Lower Linden Streets to the city as public rights-of-way. Note the Wilmington Skate Park situated in the lower left corner of the slide, as well as the mostly vacant conditions of the site. Next slide, please. This subdivision involves 1 mostly vacant 2.7-acre site bounded by Lower Elm Street, the Amtrak Railway Viaduct, Lower Linden Street, as well as the northbound exit ramp of Interstate 95 and Maryland Avenue, and currently consists of 2 separate city blocks. The site was rezoned from M1, or light manufacturing, to C2, or secondary business centers zoning district in December 2022 in City Planning Commission Resolution 9-22. City Council passed Ordinance 22-050 supporting this rezoning on January 19th, 2023. Next slide, please. The plan proposes to subdivide the site into parcels 1 through 6, illustrated here in red outlines and blue numbering. Note that only one existing building on the site is contained, note that the only existing building on the site is contained in parcel 1, a vacant 4-story industrial building at 200 Maryland Avenue that will be renovated into 19 apartments as part of this project. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates the developer's plan to build 4 segments of 24-foot wide, 2-way private streets, as well as curbs and sidewalks constructed to city standards to serve the renovated apartment building, a 2-story, 80-space parking garage, and a 4-story, 111-unit hotel. These private streets will connect the existing and proposed buildings to each other, to Maryland Avenue, and to Lower Elm and Lower Linden Street, therefore facilitating improved circulation patterns for this development, as well as the adjacent Wilmington Skate Park. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates the streets to be removed, shaded in blue. The 10-foot wide by 315-foot long segment of Nancy Street is also referred to as an alley and no longer physically exists except for its northern curb cut along Lower Elm Street. The street bed is grown over with grass and curbing is not evident. The pair of unnamed 3-foot wide alleys shown in blue running perpendicular to Liberty Street and to Nancy Street also do not physically exist. The 40-foot wide by 315-foot long segment of Liberty Street to be removed from the official city map exists in poor condition, with dilapidated portions of sidewalk existing only on the east side of the streets, and curbs do not exist. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, no, stay on that slide. My fault, thank you. The new segments of streets to be dedicated are shaded in red. Basically, a new U-shaped segment of Liberty Street proposed at 50 feet wide and 314.6 feet long, situated directly adjacent to the Amtrak Railway Viaduct right-of-way, and would include an approximately 2,562 square foot extension of Lower Elm Street and an approximately 433 square foot extension of Lower Linden Street to facilitate vehicular turning and traffic flow. A new segment of Lower Elm Street, totaling approximately 415 square feet, is proposed to be dedicated near the northern end of the existing Liberty Street, which will be removed, and that will facilitate the crosswalk of one of the private 2-way streets. The relocated Liberty Street, the portion of Lower Linden Street, and 2 portions of Lower Elm Street described above will be dedicated to the City of Wilmington as public rights-of-way. These segments, as well as the 24-foot wide private streets, as shown on the preliminary plan, will be built to city standards and will connect the hotel, parking garage, and renovated apartment building with Lower Elm Street, Lower Linden Street, and Maryland Avenue. Also noteworthy in this plan are the 63 total head-in parking spaces created. 39 of those parking spaces are proposed to be constructed within the owner's private streets and will be private parking spaces to serve the apartment building and hotel. 24 new public parking spaces situated along the relocated Liberty Street and Lower Linden Street can greatly benefit the users of Wilmington Skate Park and the surrounding area. In conclusion, this plan was circulated to city departments in October 2023. The Department of Public Works is in support of the plan and the new city street segments. The Fire Marshal's Office had no comment, and the City Planning Commission reviewed the plans and adopted Resolution 723, which recommends the approval of the applicant's request. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirk. At this time, is there anyone from the Committee on City Council that has any questions of Mr. Kirk?
I wanted
Oh,
to
I'm
have
sorry.
remarks, but I wanted him to speak before me.
I'm sorry,
Is that
Councilmember
okay, Madam
Harley.
Chair?
Go ahead, go ahead, Councilwoman Harley. You go first, and then we'll entertain questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank John for that thorough explanation in terms of the purpose of why this legislation is being presented. I really am excited about this area and how the hotel and the apartments is definitely going to enhance and add not only a better aesthetically making that area look better. For those that are not quite sure where it is, it's pretty much like along Maryland Avenue, near the I-95 underpass, and there has been a lot of businesses that have been not operating in a long time, and to bring these projects to that area is definitely going to be not only an uplift to the community, but more importantly, and what I'm excited about are the jobs that it's going to bring, especially for the hotel, and of course new players in the game as it relates to just hotels and just new options. So I'm very excited about it, and I'm to my understanding, so are some of the residents in that area. And I say some because I haven't heard from everyone, of course, but I have not heard any opposition from any of the residents in that area. So I just wanted to share again after the committee heard the full outline and explanation of what this legislation is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harley. Yeah, I would say that I too am very excited. There's been a lot of changes in that area, from a lot of the abandoned factories and homes and just dilapidated areas. And to see how everything is connecting to the neighborhoods, and certainly, as Councilmember Harley mentioned, the economic development, employment opportunities, walking distance where people can actually walk to work, for, a neighborhood on the west side that could really use that influx in the economy. So it's good to see that we are continue to grow, and we're developing in different areas and extending into the community in a positive way. Any other questions from our council members? Councilmember White?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay,
I have my
Councilmember
hand up,
McCoy?
Madam Chair.
Councilmember McCoy?
Thank you. Yes, so I did see that this was happening, and I've been contacted about previous information when it came to how we were zoning that space. I did see that we were doing something with the street, but my only issue is the fact that there is not very many residents over in that area. That area is actually fairly vacant, I would like to say, but there's just one small street that has had lots of issues, and especially with people who are houseless over in that area. And I just wanted to make certain that I got a chance to make them aware as well of what was going on. I don't know whether or not anyone has been reached out to. That is actually, they are my constituents. All of this is happening across the street from them, which is actually Councilman Harley's district, but it would affect the 6 districts residents. There's no other, I don't believe that there's actually anyone from the 4th district living over in that area. You are both correct. There isn't really anything within that space. I think they knocked down what used to be like a old nightclub or something like many, many years ago. But I just wanted to make certain that I got a chance to, that we were able to bring that information to that one row of homes that are like fairly nestled underneath the 95 overpass across from the skate park. So I just wanted to make certain that I put that information out there, because even though I've had conversations about the zoning change, I hadn't had this conversation at all.
Thank you, Councilmember McCoy. And now that you brought up that street, I have a friend who lives on that street and owns several properties, and there was some challenges that they had during the construction of 95, the renovation of 95, where environmentally they kept saying that they had it secure, and it wasn't. There was dust and dirt falling all over the place. People are breathing that in. So the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that these contractors and the people doing the work, that they are following all the environmental guidelines when they're doing this construction. Even if there isn't a lot of residential homes, there are. And as it is, folks are already breathing in the emissions from 95. They don't need any more environmental hazards added to their neighborhood. Even if it's just a small neighborhood, every life matters, every breath matters. Councilmember Field, you may proceed with your questions. Oh, Councilmember Field is present. Does anyone else from City Council have any questions or comments? Okay, not hearing any. Can I get a motion to move this ordinance out of committee?
Can I have the last remarks before you vote?
Yes. Yes,
Madam
Councilmember
Chair?
Harley.
Yes, so also wanted to add that the owner of Raybold, I think that's the name, um, he and I also had a great conversation in terms of the community and how he could give back and how, you know, the company can give back to the community. And I wanted to say that he definitely have made an effort to partner with one of our great organizations over in council member McCoy's district in terms of wanting to give back to the community. So he has already supported in that particular district. And he also shared with me that if there were some community initiatives that we are working on within the fourth district, to please let him know. And I did make contact with him about some suggestions that some of my communities in the fourth district had came up with, and he has been very open. So I really wanted it to be on record that they're not just coming in asking for support, but they're coming in asking and being willing to be a partner within the community as well. And to Councilmember McCoy, if we need to have any kind of community meetings together jointly going forward to make sure if you get any kind of complaints or any reasons for us to meet to bring the residents together and to make sure that their complaints or issues or interests as well are heard, I will be willing to do that with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harley. At this point, is there a motion to move this ordinance 23-042 out of committee? Can I get a?
So moved.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and second. The ordinance is voted out of committee. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so this will be held before City Council. John, do you know if that's the need? You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Will that be heard at the next meeting? Is in December? In December, okay. So the December, just a reminder that our council meetings will be the first and the second Thursday in December. So this will be on there in the agenda at that time. Thank you.
Thank you.
for coming.
Have a good night.
Okay, so that concludes the legislative part of this meeting. And now we have members of the community that are part of the, I guess, the Rodney Reservoir Working Group and neighbors from the Cool Springs area, Tilton Park, and that neighborhood that would like to make a presentation on what they foresee that they would like to see happen with the Rodney Reservoir. So at this point in time, I would like to bring up Jamila Davy, and anyone else that would like to join her, you're more than welcome to come up and sit where the microphones are. That way, if there's any questions or if you'd like to add to the presentation. And then we will have, I think the city's also going to come in and give us some information as well on some of the plans and what's been done to date. Okay, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Ms.
Okay, are we
Wright.
ready with the presentation? Great, looks like we are. Ms. Davy, you may go proceed. Thank you for coming, for being here today. It was late notice, but I know that the group has been working very hard on this, and you wanted an opportunity to reach other council members and the general public just to see what's going on. So I'm glad the opportunity was open for you to come and join us this evening.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Cabrera, for inviting us, and thank you to all the members of council for having us today and for your engagement on this issue. And thank you to community members that are here and members of the city that work for the city as well. I'm Jamila Davy. I'm a resident of the West Side. I live in the Little Italy neighborhood, a couple of blocks from the Rodney Reservoir. I'm a gardener at the site, and I'm here to represent Green for the Greater Good. Could we have the next slide, please? And Green for the Greater Good is a group of neighbors and other stakeholders who live around the Rodney Reservoir, who are committed to keeping the site public, safe, and green. And we've been working together to create a future scenario where all residents can enjoy its use. Can we go to the next slide, please? And so we can start by getting acquainted with the site here. It is a 3.7 acre site in the middle of one of the densest places in Delaware. It's zoned open space, sits at the meeting point of two watersheds. It is the highest point on the west side, maybe the highest point in Wilmington until Rockford was incorporated. And it's the meeting point of Little Italy, Hilltop, and the Cool Spring neighborhoods. Let's see the next slide, please. Here you go. You can see we're looking kind of northwest, right? West and north. You can see that St. Anthony's up there is oriented north. We have the reservoir with the community gardens on the right side. We are looking toward Clayton Street. You can see St. Francis Hospital, St. Anthony's. You can see the Antonian. You can see that it's a dense urban neighborhood. Just get a sense of where we are. Let's look to the next slide, please. And what's underneath it? So what is the site? It is a 7.5 million gallon tank, a concrete tank, reinforced with rebar, and this huge piece of public infrastructure that was buried at the site in 1916. And we can go to the next slide, please. And from the beginning, this site wasn't just infrastructure. It was always infrastructure and green space and a public park. It is some of Wilmington's earliest parkland, and it's never been privately developed. Before the tank went in, there were open basins, and there was a famous baseball diamond there for a while. When they went ahead and put in the tank in 1916, they had the foresight to build a roller/ice skating rink on top. You can see that there in 1919, this observation tower was put in, and you could see for 4 states, and it had there's all kinds of events that took place up there. By the 20s, it was a football place, and so the professional football leagues were playing up there, including like the Wilmington Chess Rooks. And this is an article right here. Like, notice that it says 6,000 persons up here for this throng at this band concert at the top of the Rodney Reservoir. And there were all these dances, sings, and concerts. It was really popular, and you can just see how central this site was to the community. And that tower would be part of this Cold War era Housewives Observer Corps as well. There's all this wonderful history at the site. Can we go to the next slide, please? And when you talk to neighbors, they have all kinds of memories of the place. We heard some again last night at the working group meeting. People sledding, having PE up there. A lot of people. Mr. Starkey's here, played football or other organized sports who lived in the neighborhood, we all hear from neighbors who used to scale that tower as well for fun. In the 80s, there were basketball courts up there and a gazebo. But then it was fenced off in 2003, 2004 for safety concerns, and we hear about like a lot of parks in Wilmington maybe had some safety challenges at that time. The city announced that they would improve the site and reopen it for public events, but that never happened. It was kind of dismantled and things were taken elsewhere. We can go to the next slide, please. And so it wasn't until 2010 that the community started to get access to the site again. So a group of neighbors and folks at West End Neighborhood House and other partners got permission to begin to garden on just a small portion of the site. They hauled all the soil in from to create this raised bed garden that became became the largest community garden in the city. You can see there at the top left, that's the bucket brigades. That's how the soil comes in each year. And down below are volunteers that founded the garden there, built all those beds. It also became the birthplace of Westside Grows Together, which we know now is this is a long phrase, but comprehensive community strategy vehicle that was really about residence-driven projects. And there's been a lot of that's been successful on the west side with the parks in particular. And Green for the Greater Good is kind of wanting to continue that tradition. And can we go to the next slide, please? So in the years, the garden has become, a hub of like neighborhood activity. There's been, a variety of events up there. And in the last year, something we're really proud of was making the connection with Lewis Dual Language Elementary and Healthy Foods for Healthy Kids to implement a school gardening program there so that K through 5 kids would garden, and you can see them harvesting their radishes and their lettuce here last season. Several, I think, Councilmember Spadola and Councilmember Fields were there with us at the ribbon cutting to celebrate with them. And they're learning about science and where food comes from. And I was just at the Healthy Foods for Healthy Kids 15-year anniversary gala, and it's a really exciting program there, and a lot of schools are trying to get into all of them. And we're excited about this type of program at the Rodney Reservoir, expanding this opportunity for kind of the outdoor classroom opportunities. And we have started talking to people like Wilmington Head Start, which are nearby, and enrichment programs with St. Anthony's, and there's a lot of potential for that. Another program that we started this last summer that Councilmember Cabrera came to was our free farm stand, where we have been like reaching out into our community to invite folks into the space to experience it, know that it belongs to the community, and that there's an opportunity to shape the future there, and to give away vegetables and allow people to explore allow them to explore the place and experience its kind of its specialness. That's another thing we'd really like to expand. Can we go to the next slide? So again, we can take a look at the place, look at the space there. In the center is an asphalt top, where that roller rink slash ice skating rink was, and right underneath there is the tank. At the right of the screen, that little square is where there used to be like a band shell, and on the left of the screen is the community garden again. Now we're looking toward downtown. You can see that it's a dense neighborhood. You can see how many houses are circling it there. If we go to the next slide, we're kind of looking out over the garden a little bit from up the hill. You can see that there's all these vistas, and you have this experience up there of being outside of the city. You get to take in these amazing views. Even though it's like grown wild up there, it's unplanned. It has become a wildlife habitat. We have hawks and foxes and all kinds of birds, and you hear them up there, and it is kind of a magical place that we all enjoy. So next slide, please. So last May, we got news that the city of Wilmington had asked for $1.7 million from the Bond Bill Committee to demolish the infrastructure at the Rodney Reservoir site with a vision of development. And they did not consult the community about this. And this is the language in the Bond Bill that requires, that says that comprehensive planning and community engagement must occur prior to any projects beginning at the site. Move the next slide, please. And once our community heard about this, we started organizing immediately. This picture is taken from Memorial Day last year in 2022. Like 50 or more neighbors showed up and talked about their attachment to the space, their desire to keep it public and green. That started a big conversation. We started talking about our opportunities to reopen it to the public, and this real commitment to having a resident-driven vision for this site, and Green for the Greater Good emerged from this. These first few meetings, we've been meeting every Saturday since, with just a couple exceptions, and trying to carry that forward. Can we go to the next slide, please? And since then, we have been engaged in a lot of advocacy. We worked to get that language in the bond bill. We advocated for environmental testing. We advocated for the working group that just got started. We started reaching out to partners for support and expertise, and to ask them to imagine how they could use the site to deliver it to the community, to make sure that people who need access to the green space the most would be getting up there, whether it's through outdoor classrooms or youth development, for urban ag. And we wrote a grant to get funding for a community design process from DENREC, and we were successful with that. We started learning a lot. Some of us more than others. Some of us already knew some of this stuff, but a lot of us, I was learning a lot about the importance of access to nature for child development, about the benefits of urban greening for communities, and about environmental justice issues. And along the way, we got connected with Professor Anna Wick and Dr. Nina David at in the Living Lab Research Group at the Biden School Administration, and they wrote a grant to the Wilmington Partnership to help us conduct a community design charrette with members of the community and partners, so that we could begin to think through and imagine what this future green space at the Rodney Reservoir could look like. We've been advocating and for many months and we wanted a visual, and this was so much more than that. So we came together for this multi-day, multi-session event. Could we go to the next slide, please? Here are some highlights. At the first session, we looked at, we engaged with aerial photos of the site and learned about the site conditions and concepts, and gave feedback. At the next session, young sophomores from University of Delaware created designs for the community to give further feedback on based on the input from the last session. Could we go to the next slide, please? And then at the end of it, we had a couple of concept designs that represent the community's vision at like an incubation stage, just kind of put together without really living under the constraints of real life, of what the technical issues of the site are, or what things cost, that kind of thing. These concepts had in common this desire for sculpted landforms to have like an immersive experience, an experience of being in there, and retained elements of elevation, particularly around the pump house or the gatehouse. And this is a list of some of the features that people dreamed up. First of all, we started with universal access. Everyone should be able to access all the points of the site. More community gardening. There was a validation of this idea that we need access to nature, and urban kids, urban families, residents need access to nature. The opportunities to combine a bunch of features from public art to recreation, native habitat, green infrastructure, and demonstrating that kind of thing. Next slide, please. And so, out of it, we had this vision for a nature and community-focused park that had this opportunity to deliver on goals that are in the comprehensive plan for 2028 for Wilmington and in the Resilient Wilmington report. And right now, we have this opportunity with the working group that's gotten going to use a robust community planning process, to work with professional landscape architects to create this amazing park that can meet our community's need to access nature and, improve our environment, address things like heat island effect, and address stormwater runoff, those kinds of things. Next slide, please. And so we have the Rodney Reservoir working group that got started. We had been advocating for it for over a year. We were so excited when it got going in July. We faced some constraints of time and budget, and also this lack of commitment, formal commitment on the part of the city to make a good faith effort to build the park that we designed. We hear that, and a lack of funding in place for it. But nonetheless, we, with city workers and community members, we have come together around a commitment to create a design for a park that's following out of that vision of the charrette. And we had a really positive RFP process. We put together an RFP. We had an amazing site visit with over a dozen landscape architects coming out. And then through the meeting with landscape architects, we heard, they were amazed at the site, saw this amazing opportunity for placemaking at the site, and an opportunity to build on the history of the site, and they were amazed at our community engagement. Next slide, please. Our problem is that the city's moving forward with this plan to demolish without completing the design process, and with a plan to create this flattened lot that doesn't have any of the features we're looking for in it. Next slide, please. We did hear the other day we might get to keep the pump house. That was something we heard recent as last night. And this is the city's plan: 4 months of demolition with concrete munchers, bury the rubble on site, and grade the site. And this is kind of some of the dust and debris we'll see. Next slide, please. We're concerned that the city didn't initially have any plans to do environmental testing, but we, as a community, advocated for it. And here are some of the most recent results. Have found unacceptable cancer risk under a resident scenario and non-cancer risk to children in a resident scenario. We're concerned that the city hasn't yet done any modeling to test for the actual demolition scenario when hazardous substances would be released. We'd be seeing a release of hazardous substances through the disturbance of soil and the munching of concrete. Next slide, please. So we're asking City Council to help out and to prioritize our health. There are a couple of opportunities right here. We can have a site-specific contaminated materials plan that would allow us to identify the materials and to have a plan for that. We can use these as planning tools. And DENREC strongly recommended that the city follow the HISCA guideline process, and we're asking City Council to go ahead and support that and to go ahead and move that forward. And what this means is that we, in our mind, this fits into the comprehensive planning framework that the Bond Bill Committee had for us. And this is approaching site work strategically. We can go to the next slide here. We have an opportunity. We learned about this from the firms in our presentations, that there are ways to do site work strategically. And so we want to build on that. So we are looking for a comprehensive plan to complete the design for the site before we begin demolition. We want to move forward on the vision out of the charrette and to build this nature and community-focused park. And we want to build. So if we do design and integrate it with construction, we can build on historic features of the site, including the elevation and grade change that people love so much. We can save money by integrating these steps. We can reduce the carbon footprint of the project and even tell the story of sustainable development. And we can minimize our community's risk of being exposed to hazardous substances. So we want to finish this design process, identify funding. Also, we need the design to attract the funding. And another thing, last thing I'll say is that our issue with the city's current plan is that it leaves the site in limbo. We know that we're hearing that the mayor has said we're not developing for now, but if you have a flattened site that's ready for development, that's what we know is going to happen. We know that there are plans out there that already exist to develop this site in a way that isn't green space. And our community wants an awesome park, and it deserves it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to present. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davies. If you like, you could sit there because I know that there might be some questions. I'm going to start with my council members. If you have any questions in reference to the presentation, very, very nicely done. I love the enthusiasm, and as someone who loves green spaces, it's a beautiful vision. So let's see how we can work together to make that happen. Of course, I want to hear, also from the city on what the plans are moving forward so that the community feels that the communication is there. As we know that the working group was put together with different members of the community, including the city, and I believe Councilmember Fields may be on that. No? Okay, so are there any council members
No,
on
there's
the?
no elected officials on the committee.
Okay, all right. Well, either way, you'll keep us abreast of this. Are there any questions right now that my council members would like to?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Councilmember Hartley?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to say that that presentation was very thorough, and it definitely gave those that didn't know what this is all about, what it's about. And the only thing that I would say is that I am interested in hearing what the plans are going forward, since we know that our current mayor has announced that he will not be running this time next year. He will not be the mayor. So I think it is important that the community knows exactly what is going on. And again, thank you to the presenter. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Darby?
Yes, my question, great presentation, very thorough, community involvement, love it. My question is, how can we support you? Like, what needs to what are you looking for from us in regards to the plan that you have? What do you want to see from council people?
Thank you, Councilmember Darby. A great question. We would love to see a resolution, first of all. We think would be a great step, a resolution that would call for the environmental testing that we asked for in the environmental protocols, the framework. The HISCA guidelines, we have the strong recommendation from DENREC already, in their memo to us on the site. You can see it on the city's website. So we'd like to see that. We'd like to have that site-specific contamination management plan. And then we'd like to see a resolution about the commitment to build this park that the community design process is going to roll out. That's the next thing. And then finally, what we've been asking for all along is we are looking for a commitment to complete this in a comprehensively planned way. So that we start from design, that all site work be guided by design, and that we allow the design process to play out so that we have specs that the contractors can bid for, so that they are actually bidding. Our RFP asked our landscape architects to think about addressing the safety of the tank through design. So how can we minimize our carbon footprint? How can we get this great park that we want? How can we do it sustainably? And how can we minimize the community's exposure to risk factors from the munching of silica holding concrete? So those are the three things. We want to have this environmental management plan. We want to have a commitment to build the park that we design, and then I'm kind of going in reverse order, but we want to have the design drive the site work. And we think that we could accomplish that in a resolution.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members? Okay. So at this time.
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes,
I'm
Councilmember
sorry, I put my
McCoy, you may
hand
proceed.
Down for a second, because most of the question that I had, I wanted to ask, Councilman Darby did. I just wanted to make certain, I'm sorry, this is Councilman McCoy. I just wanted to be certain about when the concept, I think the design plans, I heard it was plural. Had anyone actually come up with truly what they wanted to see, like anything specific that they wanted to be able to partner up, I guess, with the city to make certain that this is the way we like for you to focus, or is it still more like you wanted to have more conversations and kind of like, figure out what would be the best way to go forward? I just wanted to get that last portion clarified.
You may
Co-
proceed.
Thank you, Councilmember McCoy. So are you asking about the design process itself, or about the process for designing the site, or about the comprehensive planning of how the city's going to go about doing the work at the site?
No, actually, it was going to be the design of the site, because I do realize that how important it is in order to find out what's going on with that tank underneath the hill, and to make certain that it isn't any issues that may cause harm to the community. Then, of course, how they were going to take it apart. I know those things were actually, those are projects you're definitely working on. It was the last portion. How can the city be more, are you going to be presenting something to the city like this is what we want? Or are you going to be trying to work with the city? Once you get to that portion, work with the city, where like this is what we think should happen, and have a give and take on what would be the best for that area.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Councilmember McCoy. So, like we said, we had a charrette last summer that created a vision, and then this summer, earlier in June, and then July, we got going with this Rodney Reservoir Working Group. So, I probably did omit saying this, that at the end of that request for proposal process, we, the city did hire a landscape architect, and we had our first meeting with them last night. There's going to be additional community design events that will allow more to try to get more members of the community involved, more partner organizations involved to design that future. A frustration that we've had through the working group is that we have presented these ideas about the importance from the very beginning, that we've been asking this for over a year in our advocacy, that we begin with design and begin construction afterwards, and we have been told just plain no. That it's not negotiable, that the place is being demolished in January. But we did get the caveat, we can move the dirt around. If you get the design done, maybe we can move the dirt around. Last night we heard for the first time that you might be able to keep the pump house. Mayor Przicki said, if there's something really inspiring, maybe I'll be moved. And we are frustrated by that because we think that the city should be responsive to the community's interests. And that should be, we've been asking for a resident-driven process the whole time, and that's been a frustration for us. So we have been asking. We had some landscape architects that told us, started speaking about how they could, approach not demolition, but deconstruction. That's what you do in 2023. Like that's to save on carbon, to save the community's exposure. We just heard in that last presentation how important it is to follow all the environmental protocols and keep the community's exposure to dust and contaminants, a priority. We're wondering why that's not a priority at our site. The city wasn't going to do any environmental testing. We're the ones, these neighbors right here that, yes, you can.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
This is Christian Willauer from the community.
Yeah,
and
my
you're
name's
part of
Christian
the
Willauer.
working
I'm
group.
work really closely with Green for the Great. I volunteer with Green for the Greater Good. And Councilwoman McCoy, the answer to your question is that the community and the city currently are working on a collaborative community design process for this park, the future Rodney Reservoir Park. And the city, Mayor Przicki set up a working group. There's city members on it. There's community members on it. We went through an RFP process. We hired a landscape architect. And that landscape architect kicked off their community design process last night. And so what Green for the Greater Good is asking is for that community design process to finish and to get tons of people involved, create an awesome design with tons of resident engagement that's based on an understanding of the conditions of the site, and that we use that plan to drive any site work that's needed, that we don't do demolition until that design is done, and that we identify funding to build the park before we demolish the Rodney Reservoir.
Thank you for that thorough answer.
Yeah.
I would
Thank you.
I would like to bring the members from the city, if you could come and speak to this, because we're having the dialogue, but we haven't heard from what the city is doing, and I'm glad to hear that last night, that meeting, the engagement was there. It sounds like we have a path forward. So Vince, are you speaking, or Commissioner Starkey, whomever would like to come up? We got 3 seats, microphones, and, because I want us to have a thoughtful discussion while we're here. I don't have any other presentations, don't want to drag the meeting out, but these are questions and concerns that the community has. We want them answered, and we also want the city to, represent your plans and what you're doing as well. We don't want the city thrown under the bus.
Hi, Vince Groch, I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the
Thank you.
Department of Public Works. With me I have,
I'm Lynn Klaus. I also work in Public Works, and I'm also a co-chair for the advisory committee for the Rodney Reservoir.
Thank you. Thank you
so,
both.
I'll just start out with a general overview. So the 1.7 is a proposal that I had put together when we put in for the FY22 state bond bill. So we presented that to the administration, to the state, and got the funding for demo of the site. I've been with Public Works, as most of you know, for quite a while. We had to fence that site off because the roof of the structure is unsafe to allow anyone to work on. We have a report, and Lynn will provide the information on our website page that we set off of the main city website that has all of the reports, the geotech reports, consultant reports, soil testing reports, and so on. As it relates to the site itself, the mayor and the administration have committed to making this an open green space. So any talk of future development and so on and so forth is unfounded. The mayor is committed to the members of the Green for the Greater Good group and to the Rodney Reservoir Advisory Committee to keep this as a green open space to be enjoyed by the public. So I'm going to clear that up right here.
Thank you.
As far as testing, we have engaged with DENREC to do our due diligence. This is not the first construction project we've worked on. We have had extensive soil testing, more so than probably any other project that I've worked on where we're demoing entire sites. 31 separate samples were taken and analyzed. The page reports are available on the city's website, thousands of pages of analytical documents. We brought in a consultant, Verandis, who is an expert with environmental issues, and had them manage all the testing. We've done asbestos testing on the gatehouse and the walls of the tank where the gatehouse is located. No asbestos was found on the sites. We ran the soil testing model through a risk assessment tool that DENREC has. The only thing that we found that was of concern was a naturally occurring cobalt. In order for that to be an issue, and we reran this with DENREC twice, because after the initial run was provided, they changed the parameters and wanted us to run it with additional exposure time for the various groups. So we actually used a very conservative methodology. The only thing that came out above the DENREC levels is for the naturally occurring cobalt would be in a residential scenario. So that would be if we were building homes there, someone would have to be on site 350 days a year for 26 years in order to have an exposure to the cobalt that is above the current DENREC levels. Again, all that information and reports that we have provided, and we've worked closely with DENREC. We've had several calls with them. We've submitted the report. They have come back to us with and approved our contaminated materials management plan for the site, have cleared us to start on demo for the site. We've been cleared with a dust control plan that was also submitted out of an abundance of caution, so there will be wet down water on site during the process. So the way we envision and our consultants and engineers have drawn the plans up for this project, we will be making entrance off of 8th Street. Once we uncover the walls of the tank, since we cannot go on top of it because it is unsafe, we'll be taking additional samples of concrete and testing that for asbestos out of an abundance of caution. We don't feel we're going to find anything there, but we agreed with DENREC that we would do that. Then once that would be cleared, we would be making entrance into the tank off of 8th Street. The walls, the berms around the other 3 sides of the tank would be remaining for noise attenuation. And again, as I said, we would be having wet down water in there. We'd be essentially going through, working our way through the site and collapsing all the concrete, removing any rebar, removing any lead pipe that's on the site, which most of the piping is going to be at the other end by where it runs into the gatehouse, and that's not in the area of the tank we were going to be disturbing. However, we will remediate all that and remove all those materials and recycle or dispose of them properly. Once the tank, the munching of the concrete is completed, that essentially is filling the void that is the 7.5 million gallon water tank. Then the plan then calls for utilizing the soils around the berms on each side of the 3 sides of the reservoir and pushing that over for site cover. Additionally, there may end up being additional soils that we have to bring in, but the overall look of the site, once the demolition would be completed and construction completed with it, essentially you would be able to walk onto the site, straight onto it from 8th Street. So that would would aid an ADA compliant access to the future site. If any of you are familiar with it now, there's the high slopes that you saw in the presentation, so there is no way to access the site without going up series of steps to get into the property. The grade would be a 1% grade towards 9th Street. So again, you'd be able to walk on or roll a wheelchair on from the 8th Street side of the property. We envision fencing and the existing brick pillars around the site all remaining, and the areas to the north of the gatehouse where that sidewalk goes through now, the garden areas, we don't envision touching any of that area. That would remain in an as-is state.
Just a correction, though. We did say we would work with the landscape architect, and if they were able to provide us with a site map, we would be able to leave the soil as have a plan.
Right. Deposit
Yeah,
as
we can
as
deposit
needed.
as
So
needed, so we will work with that.
yeah, as Lynn has mentioned,
Please
we've
forget it.
engaged the services of a landscape architect through an RFP process that was administered by the advisory committee. They're they're in the process of being put under contract, and they've been given instructions to come up with preliminary designs for what the future of this site would look like. From the water department standpoint, which is why we put in for the money to demolish this, because it is no longer safe and no longer feasible to put it in service as a finished water storage reservoir. We're looking to make the site safe. At that point, the water department will have no physical nexus to the site, and we would be turning the site over to the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you for that thorough explanation. Really quick, because I know one of the things I heard from the community is height. I know the ADA accessibility is something that I brought up, so that was taken into concern. But would they still have some of that height that kind of lends to the uniqueness of that
On
site?
We did meet with the landscape architect. We selected one of the architects is like an expert in grading, and so they're very excited about the elevation and keeping the elevation, but also being ADA accessible at the same time. So that'll be part of our design process.
So since last night was the first meeting that you had with the working group and the architect, is this the same architect?
I should step back. The working group has been meeting
We've been
for
meeting since
months. So
July.
the mayor and certain representatives have appointed folks to the committee, and they have had multiple.
But like the architect?
Yeah,
because
The architect was the first. Last night was the
Yeah,
first time we met
that's
with
what
the
I meant,
selected
yeah.
architect.
Yeah, I know you guys,
Yep.
listen, I remember when this first started.
Yeah.
My friend Kevin Malloy was the one who brought it to the attention of the community that this was happening. So last night was basically the first meeting really talking to the architect, and this is the architect that the working
committee
group is
selected.
working with.
Committee's selected.
So then it sounds to me like a lot of the fears that the community has had and brought forward into the attention, that you're working together to address them. You have an architect, you have a plan moving forward. Some of the concerns that I've heard is also, before the demolition starts, can we agree on a design? Or is that continue to be a work in progress? What's the flexibility to do that?
With,
We've been, originally the mayor had asked us to have a design concept in like mid-November. We've been pushing it back, and the city has been willing to allow us to push back that due date for a landscape design, just because, you know, with people's schedules, it's been hard to get everybody to meet and to select the landscape architect and that whole process. So I think right now we're looking to have a landscape design in place by sometime like beginning of February is what was on the schedule.
However, what is the timeline? Is the demolition starting right on the dot in January, or are we saying
no,
that it's
we're,
something else?
we're gonna be going out to bid here within probably the next week or two. Then that starts an entire process, as you know, with some of these construction contracts. That's, you know, there's a lot of hoops that have to be jumped through to.
So
there's
conceivably,
Yeah.
Same time. it
we
could
probably
go out
won't
at
even
the
be
same
starting
time.
to do any of the work until the spring, which gives you more time to really adopt a concept, a design, that between, you know, the community and everyone can kind of feel comfortable with. I mean, that sounds good to me, and I know that the community is gonna have some questions. And that, you know, we compromise and we work together. I think that's a good thing. Let me see if I have any questions from council members, because I do want to open it up to the public. Councilmember McCoy, and then let me start with, Councilmember McCoy, then we'll go with
thank
Councilmember
you.
White.
Okay, so I had like two questions basically. So Vince, you actually gave a lot of information. I'm just trying to make certain that I got as much as I could. Just wanted to know, it seems as though you talked about a lot of some testing had already been done, and there was like minimal contamination. I just wanted to know whether or not had those reports have been shared with the group.
Can we,
Yes.
can you, if you want, we can bring up the City of Wilmington's website. We have a page directly for the Rodney Reservoir, and it contains all of the testing information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it also has, we've had our contractors, the testing engineer and our constructioneer, put together. There's been a lot of questions, environmental questions, just questions about the demolition. And we've had them answer as many questions that have been brought to us. Also, they put together a memo on what the actual soil testing is and put it in layman's term on how would they determine like what the soil's
Layman's term
being
is
used.
important.
Yeah, what the soil's being used for. Is it being used for people who live there 365 days a year? Is it somebody who's gardening? Is it just people who are using it for recreational purposes? So DENREC has different requirements based on what the soil is going to be used for. So
Okay.
that is
All right.
under the
I do have a second
environmental
question I'll
section.
follow.
It's under the
Madam
environmental.
Chair?
Yeah, I mean, you can look through it. There's a lot of information and there's a lot of history on there.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember McCoy?
Yes, so I was stating, I said I had a second question.
Yeah. The first PDF is the layman's term for the soil testing and how they determine what's required based on the use.
Chairwoman Cabrera, are you able to
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I asked to follow and I never got any information back. So the second question that I had was, I've actually already known that there was, you know, of course, the reservoir was deemed unsafe for quite some time. I don't know whether or not you're aware, but I've actually participated in quite a few of those dirt days working for Westside Groves, so lugging that stuff down the hill. What I would like to know was, what was the significant change in the reservoirs from then till now that we decided that we needed to take care of this at this very moment?
The roof.
The problem, Councilmember McCoy, is with the roof. The concrete between the support beams is not structurally sound. We had a structural engineer go in and take a look at that and take borings of it back in 2006 and prepare a report. That is why we had to fence the area off and cannot allow anybody to walk on it, because if you were walking between the beams, you could fall right through into the reservoir. It's no longer, the concrete is no longer consolidated.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you for answering those questions. That was one of my biggest concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCoy. Councilman White?
Yes, Madam Chair, got a series of questions. First of all, I know Vince, but what's your role with the department? And
I do a lot of things within Public Works. I do a lot of project management. I help manage the paving, the
and
concrete.
your name again, please?
Lynn Klaus, Klous.
What's the current height of the property?
The height,
Current height?
I think it's about 245 feet above sea level.
What's the proposed height after demolition?
I think that's going to be
The drawing is, the proposed plan is on that section of the website
Thank
that WITN had up there. We had a perspective drawing in there. But it would, essentially the grade would be street level on the 8th Street side. And then that would taper up at a 1-degree slope towards 9th Street. The grade around the sidewalk, where the sidewalk cuts through the northern end of the property, would remain unchanged. So there'd still be steps and so forth on the 9th Street entrances into the park.
Would that increase runoff or decrease runoff?
There's going to be a
The proposed
1%
grade.
slope, so it's 1%. It's going to be a very minimal slope, so the water, the storm water falling on the site would remain on the pervious surfaces.
Just to mention, though, the landscape architect, that's not the plan I don't think anybody in the community wants. So we're going to be working with the landscape architect who will
what's
most likely change that.
Thank you. What's the property currently zoned as?
It's
The
open
zone-
space. It's open space.
Open space. And let me ask you a question. Back to Chair's comments. What do you think is the disconnect between what you're saying and what the community is saying? What's the disconnect?
Can I also just say, I'm a co-chair of the committee, and I want to represent everybody on the committee, and not everybody on the committee has the same concerns. So there are some who are concerned about the environment, are concerned about what's actually going to take place at this site, but there's also those who don't have the same concerns. So
What other concerns would they have?
I mean, just from what their concerns are, I think that's,
I don't understand. You said
But-
someone
I'm
don't
just
have.
saying not everybody has the same concerns that were presented tonight. There's a lot of people in the community that are, don't share the same environmental concerns, don't have the same desires what the park is gonna be.
So you're saying that there's some people on this working group that does not have concerns regarding environmental risk?
Correct.
But they're not here.
I think what
They're-
Lynn means
they're
by
not here
that, that
tonight.
they don't think that additional testing and additional work as it relates to site-specific, contaminated material management plans are necessary, because we've met with them, we've shown them the same reports that are posted on the website, and they understand that the regulating authority, in this case DENREC, is saying it's safe to move forward with what we want to do. That was the whole point of testing and submitting to DENREC.
And that plan has been, was shared with the community?
It's all in the documentation that's posted on our website, yes.
So I guess, was the plan shared with the community only via the website, or was there any meetings?
These are public committee meetings, so we've had, Lynn's the co-chair of the committee. I don't have the total number of
Okay.
meetings. I'm not on the committee, but they have had numerous.
This is the working group?
It's the working group, yes.
We haven't talked about the environmental issues. It's not on the agenda.
Well, thank you from there. So there's meetings, minutes of these public meetings, right? This
They are
working
open
group
to the
in
public.
minutes.
They're
But are there minutes?
yes.
So can
Well-
you, excuse
Excuse me,
me.
the public, you really can't speak out. You gotta wait to be called, and you'll have a moment to speak
So
when
I'm
Go to
just,
public
so are there minutes or they're not minutes?
There have been minutes, and we also taped.
So
A
can
meeting.
you provide council with a copy of those minutes?
Mhm.
please? Thank you. Normally, well, I can't say normally. What steps, and this seems to come up a lot, will the city take or has taken to minimize damage to other properties, adjacent properties, i.e. basements and that kind of thing?
I mean, we'll typically do like pre-con surveys,
You-
videotape, and so forth, and document the existing condition. There's not I mean, there's going to be munchers on the property. There's not going to be a lot of, there'll be some, breaking of concrete within there and munching of the concrete, but not in the street itself. It's
Yeah,
going to
but
be.
vibrations, normally people relate
We
to
get it, yeah.
vibrations, right?
So we'll typically, on a lot of our street projects, whether we're digging for water, sewer mains, what have you, we'll do pre-con instruction. That becomes part of the scope of the contractor. He's responsible. He would go through and take pre-construction surveys, videotape of the foundations of the property and so forth prior to, and then that way if a claim was to come up, that would be their responsibility to manage.
And just working through this, what light pollution measures will be incorporated in this site, if any? Will the site be lit?
The site is lit currently, and there's plans to maintain some level of lighting up there in the future. That would be cognizant upon what the final design plans look like. But there are lights up there now.
And so do you feel as though what the community's requesting is unrealistic?
I've not seen a formal plan at this point. There's a lot of ideas. The mayor and the administration have agreed to work towards a goal with the community to develop the site. My goal is to make sure it's safe before we move off it. We built the tank. We ran the tank since 1917 until we shut it down in the late 90s. And we're just trying to make sure the site's left in an appropriate condition to turn over to parks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No more questions.
Thank you. Are there any other council members online that have any questions before I open it up to the public? Okay. At this point, anyone from the public that would have any questions or comments that you'd like to come up? Anyone? Yep. If you could please speak into the mic and state your name.
I'm Anita Delago. I live at 1500 West 8th Street, directly across from the reservoir. And listening to everything tonight, my comments are really brief. I just want to know for myself, and I do know for the community and all of my neighbors, not just on my street, but the surrounding community. I do believe it's important to have, once the demo's date is determined, that the community knows what's coming next. There's an agreed upon plan in writing that states this is what's coming next. I can put up with a lot, but if I know something good is coming after that. And right now, I don't feel like we have that. We don't have anything saying what comes next. That's going to be a park. And I know we have, landscape designers, we have all of that in place. We need to get more down on paper and in writing to ensure that the community knows what comes next, because just this week we've had street work done that's made a mess. Okay, I can deal with that, but when you go up there for 4 months, people want to know what's coming afterwards, what's coming after that demo, because then at least they can rest assured there's something good coming out of it, and that's really what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for speaking. I mean, it sounds to me, from what I'm hearing, this is a work in progress. There is no final footprint. The whole point of getting that working group together was when the community said, this is what we want, when they heard the demolition was coming, the city halted, the plans to demolish weren't immediate, and the working group was formed. Last night is the first meeting with the landscape architect. Of course, there's other moving pieces with this. So it sounds to me that before we even start the demolition, there's going to be more time and more meetings for the working group, which is representative of many different members of the community, not just the people that are here. I appreciate the presentation that was made and the vision, because I think overall the community wants to see green space, and what I've heard is that this is going to be kept as green space. So now we're going to talk about the particulars, because I was very excited about the things that I saw on paper, and I do hope that many of those things do get incorporated. But to me, it sounds like in good faith, the city is working with the community. There is a working group, and there aren't any definitive plans right now. We don't even have a date of demolition. We know that the bids have to go out. There's a plan in place for the environmental issues that could come up. So I'm glad to hear that. At this point, if there's any other comments or questions from the community, if you'd like to come up, please.
Yes, good evening. I wanted to thank you, Councilwoman Cabrera, for inviting Green for the Greater Good to present tonight. I'm April Collins. I live at 1512 West 8th Street. I'm a gardener there. I'm a member of the Green for the Greater Good. I'm a member of the working group, the Rodney Reservoir Working Group. My ask this evening is for City Council support to allow for the comprehensive planning and the community engagement and the design to come before any demolition starts. I just think it should be one cohesive design for the space to make it safe, keep it green, and open it to the public. This should be done in a way that will preserve the historical and cultural significance of the site. Rushing forward to demolish the reservoir without knowing the final design will cost more money and resources for the city in the end. So we should combine the design and the deconstruction to save money and build on the historical impact of the site. So as we said, the city and the working group did hire a landscape architect. We met with them last night, and they are gonna do community engagement and come up with this great design for the future of the park, and we're so excited to start that. We are concerned they're not anticipating getting their final design until the end of February, and demolition is scheduled to start in January, so we are hoping that maybe the city, that we can work together to combine those dates into one. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for being one of our wonderful nurses.
Councilmember Cabrera, I'd like to, just one
Yes,
thing,
go
one of
ahead.
the things that we heard loud and clear from the mayor was we did not want to be doing demolition in the summer. When a lot of people were outside, we were trying to do this in such a way where we would have this complete. We're talking about 4 months of demo, to try to do it in a, through the winter months when there's not a lot of outside activity going on. I mean, I know it's disruptive. Anytime we're working, whether it be water main work, sewer main work, it becomes disruptive to the neighborhood. So to speak to the one resident's concern, when we get done, you're gonna have a freshly paved street and new water mains and hydrants out there.
Great, thank you. Thank you for those comments. You can state your name, please.
Oh, hi, my name's Christian Willauer. You know, I really thank again Councilwoman Cabrera and all the council members who are here tonight. I know that you have been, had a super busy week. I have nothing but respect for council members for all the serious decisions you make. So this is gonna be just following up on what's been said. I just want to clarify that there has been, and this is a concern of mine, I'm a resident, I live about a block and a half from this site. It's a huge place. I mean, make no mistake, this is a 4-acre site. This is like a solid block, and it's built of reinforced concrete with rebar, and it is going to be a giant project. 4 months, like most demolition doesn't take 4 months. So we're talking about a very large demolition, we're talking about a very large site, and we're talking about a very dense urban neighborhood. So I just wanted to say, people have said that there's very little contamination. Actually, there's quite a bit of contamination. And the reason there's a lot of contamination is because it was built in 1916, before there was a lot of environmental concerns. And there's a lot of random things up there that were put into that site that I don't think we even really know everything. So when DENREC did do testing, they found a bunch of things, and I gave everybody, you can look at your packet. In the packet, there's a couple of maps that just show some of the testing. And like a lot of the contamination is because they used a lot of coal ash cinders and other things as part of the fill. In those days, they used a lot of random fill. So what they found, what Verdantis found was they did testing, they found contamination, they ran risk scenarios, and this is what they found. Regulated substances in shallow soil are present at an unacceptable cancer risk under the resident scenario. And then they also found regulated substances in shallow and combined shallow and deep soil are present at an unacceptable non-cancer risk under the resident child HI scenario. And I don't really know what that means, but when I read this, I read unacceptable cancer risk. To me, that means unacceptable cancer risk. And when I read unacceptable non-cancer risk, to me, that means unacceptable non-cancer risk. I do have children. I am a resident. I think the soil on this site, because of the scale of the demolition, is going to end up in the neighborhood. And I think that we need to have like a lot of oversight of this demolition in order to keep it safe. So, that's why I'm concerned about what is happening. Another page of your packet has, what DENREC, has required. And in my view, we need to ask DENREC to have more oversight. They gave the city a pass. They said you can do a generic hazardous management plan. I don't think that's enough. If you look at the end of your packet, there's 2 pages at the very end. That's the generic management, like hazardous material management plan that the city has to follow. It's like nothing. I mean, I do community development, and we often have contaminated management plans to deal with hazardous materials on site, and it's always thicker than this. I mean, this is like very minimal. So I don't think that, I think what we're asking is for city council to take more oversight of this project. City council, you know, this is a water utility owned site. City council's the board of the water utility. And we are gonna be presenting you with a resolution that we hope you'll consider and ask, you know, DENREC to take more oversight of management of the contamination, and also to ask the city to, you know, have a more serious approach to addressing the contamination. And ultimately, we think that you can create a really great park here with a great design that can minimize exposure of the community. Like, we don't have to create this problem. Like, this site, you know, the site that talks about the roof being in a bad condition, it was from 2006. Like, there is no emergency to demolish this site. Like, we can take the time to do this correctly and to keep people safe and to create a great park. And we're hoping that council will bring your, you know, your oversight to this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm looking at the packet. I do see here where it says, you know, just the last page of the letter, that although soils at the site do not pose an unacceptable risk under non-residential scenarios, as a conservative measure, Verdantes recommends that the following actions be implemented during the following demolition activities of the site. Soil disturbing activities at the site should be in accordance with DENREC's generic contaminated materials management plan. Air monitoring plan. Following and regrading and stabilization activities. I mean, it looks to me like there is engagement with DENREC, and at this point, I will ask you to speak to the concerns that were brought up, because I understand that I just don't feel that doing nothing is an option. To me, it sounds like the due diligence is being done. DENREC is involved. The community is involved. There's a working group. There's a landscape. People are being heard. The city could have just said, we're going to develop homes. We're going to flatten it out. We don't care what you say. They didn't do that. Council members can certainly put our 2 cents into this, resolutions, things, try to encourage. I always remind people, we are the legislative branch, and there's the administrative branch. To some extent, we can try to get things done through the administration, through legislation, through the budget, put a little pressure on there, but we're not the mayor. We don't tell the administration what to do. This is something they went forth, they got the money, it needs to be done, there's a safety concern, and the fact that it hasn't been addressed since 2006, I think it's actually shameful. Should have been addressed way before that. But if you could answer to the concerns that were brought, please.
Sure. Madam Chair, so there is a meeting that DENREC is scheduling that was requested by the Green for the Greater Good group. We have met with DENREC multiple times, and they are willing to meet with them. They are willing to meet with the entire committee and explain the test results through their risk model.
Okay, thank you. We also have a Marissa McClinton on the line who would like to make public comment. Ms. Marissa, if you're still with us, you may proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name is Marissa McClinton. I am an environmental justice organizer with the Sierra Club Delaware chapter, and I became informed of Green for the Greater Good's efforts during the Social Change Summit where I met Jamila. And so just want to speak to a couple of things. When we look at climate change as a whole, we see that extreme heat is going to be the most dangerous impact, and that's why I really love that the collaboration that's been had around the Rodney Reservoir to keep it a green space. If there's any way we can get that in writing and get that as something that is permanent and cannot be changed whenever there is a new mayor in the next cycle, that would be great. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind. As much as we can get these commitments to have a green space, commitment to delay construction, commitment to have a comprehensive planning before the deconstruction on paper and solidified, that is one of the best ways to ensure that community members can feel safe in the fact that their concerns are heard and are not going to be at the whim of whoever is in charge of the project. So just want to say that I love the collaboration. It's been really great to see all the folks from different aspects of the city and of the state come together on this issue. And so I do love that. Just the other point that I want to make is that this has been going on for so long, and we have an opportunity to build a green space in the eyes of what residents want. And as far as environmental justice goes, that's very rare. And so we have an opportunity right now to really envision communities that people are empowered to take place in building. And that's why I really love all the work that's been done on behalf of Green for the Greater Good and other partners to really have this be a community collaboration to create the vision for this space. Not often do we get to kind of come into our green spaces with creativity and planning. And so just want to really point out that that is an incredibly inspirational thing that I think communities in Delaware, just beyond the Rodney Reservoir, will be able to see as an example moving forward of good community collaboration, both with the city, the state, and community and stakeholders. So really love what Green for the Greater Good is doing. I love the collaboration. We'd love to get everything on paper. And thank you all for kind of being here and really fighting for green space. It's super important. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Marissa. I think that was it is exciting to be able to be part of designing something which we don't always get those opportunities. So that is, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Councilman White, did you have another?
Just a clarity. So, Vince, is the conflict, you believe, well, first of all, Denrick is allowing you to do the remediation of the site, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, there's nothing to be remediated at this point. They're allowing us to do demo and to test and to do the air quality monitoring while we're working.
Okay,
So at this point, there is nothing to be remediated.
okay.
So what they had agreed to do is once the final regrade on the site is done, they would do surface soil samples to 2 feet deep and determine if there was any hazard remaining at that point.
So they're not requiring any soil replacement?
Not at this point. We would, not until the testing would be done at the end. So
But even though this report says shallow contamination,
they are not.
They're not,
They're
okay.
not requiring us to remediate, haul off site and replace soil. No.
all right. So the conflict is between what you feel as though Denrick is giving you permission to do and what the community, the working group, or some members of the working group feels as though you should do more. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
Sure.
No other questions?
Are there any other closing comments or questions from my council colleagues? Okay, not seeing any. I want to thank everyone that engaged. I didn't think our meeting would go this long, but I'm glad that we had the dialogue and the conversation as we, as council members, are hearing from different members of the community. I think it's important to have the discussion, to hear from all sides. And I'm still, I'm just very happy that we are collaborating together and that we did hear the voices of the community and that the working group was formed and that their input in the planning is vital. So I thank all of you, our city workers, for being here, answering these questions. At this time, this concludes the Community Development and Urban Planning Committee meeting. Again, we're reminding you that the next committee meeting will take place on the second Thursday in January. And at this time, your council member at large, Maria Cabrera, I am asking for a motion to close this meeting out.
Motion, Madam Chair.
Can I get a second? Are there any council members left? I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved in second. This concludes the meeting of the Community Development and Urban Planning. Everyone have a wonderful holiday, and we will meet again in January. Thank you.